Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Yahmeed, your English teacher. We are going to start English 11 and we are going to cover some student learning outcomes, and this is our introductory lecture. In this lecture, you will learn about all these different kind of student learning outcomes of different competencies and skills that we will be covering in our video lesson series. Now, you can see that we have all these different student learning outcomes and they will be addressed in our upcoming video lesson series. Now, as you know that for learning any language, and also let's take an example of English language, because we are dealing with a language subject, we need to cover different language skills, whether it's about writing, reading, listening and speaking, and also your grammar and vocabulary. Now, all these things, they are very important to cover, and our student learning outcomes that we are addressing in this video lesson series is covering each and every student learning outcome of these different competencies effectively in our video lessons. Now, since this is an introductory lecture, I will be introducing different kind of SLOs divided in different lectures. And not only this, but you can find so much more relevant content in our video lesson series. You will be seeing pictures, illustrations, simulations in order to understand better. Let's say for lecture number 1, which we will be covering tomorrow, in this one, you can see that there are 2 student learning outcomes mentioned. They are merged into one lecture because they are relevant, and we will be covering these 2 in our lecture number 1 with proper definitions, let's say examples, and a lot of different activities, and there is a whole organized way of your classroom activities, your homeworks. We also have resources for you like the worksheet, the skill sheet, your question bank, your PowerPoint presentation that you're seeing right now. All these things will be shared with you. So for lecture number 1, sentences using the sentence patterns specific genres. Now, we are going to study our grammars or vocabularies SLOs first. We will be covering SLOs of grammar first, because you know that having a good grammar, a good understanding of how the language actually works and how we can actually effectively achieve it is very important. Then we will be covering the competency of reading and critical thinking, where we will be covering students' learning outcomes of reading and critical thinking competency, and then we will be moving on to our oral communications SLOs and then to our writing competencies. So this is the pattern that we are following in our video lessons of different SLOs of English 11. Now, you can see that in this one we are covering grammar. We need to see that how we can construct or make sentences using the sentence patterns. As you know, there's subject, verb, object. So all these different kind of sentence patterns will be covered for you so that you can easily recognize one and use it whenever you need, so that you make less grammatical mistakes and sentence structure errors in your speech and also in your writing. And not only this, we will be covering the sentence structure according to the specific genres. Now, for English 11, we will take things a little further, be more practical, and increase and enhance our understanding of the sentence structure of English language specifically. And then in the same lecture, we will be covering students' learning outcome, which says apply knowledge of parts of speech, tenses, sentence, and and vocabulary to understand functions in meaning. So you are very much familiar with the different components of grammar and also about parts of speech, how important is using the tenses correctly. It is very important, and also your sentence structure and lot of other different features of grammar. Having a good grip on grammar is very important, and in this way you can increase your reading comprehension, your writing, and also your oral communication when you're communicating with somebody in English. Now, you know that there are different meanings, and choosing the right meaning for the right situation is also very important. So we will be covering this students learning outcome effectively in our lecture number 1. So next, for lecture number 2, we will be covering a students learning outcome. I'm reading this for you. And use appropriate words and phrases for listening. Independently gather vocabulary, word or phrase important comprehension or expression. Now, the SLO is demanding us to acquire, to have a skill of using the appropriate words and phrases when we are using them in our speech and writing. In all these competencies mentioned over here, and not only this, but we will also acquire a very good skill of individually, independently finding meanings of unfamiliar words using our vocabulary enhancement skills and drills. Now, in this one, you can see that you have a lot of different resource materials like your dictionaries, your glossaries, thesauruses, and so on. So in this lecture, I'll introduce these things to you and tell you that how you can gather your vocabulary independently whenever you're coming across any kind of difficulty when you are reading something, or also when you're speaking or listening. So this will increase your comprehension and also your expression, because we have different kind of individualities and personalities, and our expression can be different, but we have to stick to the right kind of sentence structure. We should know about the parts of speech, tenses, and other sentence structures. So this is also very important. And till now, do we have any kind of question? Okay, now moving on. After covering something from grammar and then also from vocabulary, now we are going to see lecture number 3. So in lecture number 3, we will be covering this and while reading strategies to analyze and explore of meaning within text, including. Now, here are two words: biases and opinions. They are important to learn because as a reader, as somebody who reads, and we get our knowledge and information through our reading skills, through our understanding, which we call comprehension. So it is very important that we adopt these reading skills to enhance our reading comprehension in order to get the right meaning. So we will be using some strategies. If we are reading a fiction or a non-fiction text, we will be asking some questions before we read, which we call pre-reading, and while we are reading it, and also after we have read our text. So this gives us a whole idea of the text that is in front of you, whether it's a shorter text or a longer one. And we will be covering different layers of meaning, because we know that there are hidden meanings also and implicit meaning as well in our text, and we have to read between the lines in order to understand what we are trying to find and how we can answer questions after we have read our text. We will be identifying biases, prejudice, and also identify what are facts and what things are somebody's opinion. So all things will be covered in our lecture number 3 with definitions, detailed examples, and practical knowledge. Now, moving on to our lecture number 4. In lecture number 4, we will be covering the student's learning outcome. It says, give an informed personal and analytical response to a text and provide some supporting textual reference. So let's break this student's learning outcome down. Let's see. We are going to read something, any text, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, whether it's an article or anything that you can think of that requires understanding. We will be giving it personal and analytical response, which means we will read something and we will respond to the text in the form of answers to the questions. And while we are answering our questions, we need to give some textual references, some evidences from the text that we have just read to make our answers even stronger and full of references, so that our answer is very much valid and according to the text. So we will be covering this. We will be reading different chunks of text and answering some questions at the end using our knowledge and also the skill of recognizing our biases and opinions. All this will be covered in lecture number 4, and for lecture number 5, as you know that the previous student's learning outcome was also about the reading comprehension skill, and this one is also about reading comprehension. When we are reading something, we apply relevant information and we infer the theme or the main distinguishing between facts necessary. So, my dear learners, we will be covering a very good concept of reading. It is skimming and scanning. These are two strategies for reading comprehension, because we read for different purposes. There are a lot of different purposes for which we read, and sometimes we are looking for something specific, then we scan the text. And when we are looking for the main idea of any text, whether it's fiction or the non-fiction text, you can skim the whole text and conclude the main idea of the text. We will be learning about these two strategies. How do we do it effectively to get the right answer? And also, we will see, why do writers write? Why do authors write, whether they write fiction or non-fiction text? What is the purpose behind writing, and how the audience is also categorized in different categories, classifications, and what do the audience actually wants to read? So the audience analysis will be covered, and we will tell you that how there are different kind of audiences and how you can write for them accordingly so that it is in their interest and they read it. And also, we will be covering that how we infer, how we can extract and fetch the main idea of the text, and how we can differentiate between our fact and opinion. All these things, all those keywords that are mentioned over here, as you can see, we will be covering them in our lecture number 4 with examples, with resources to put your knowledge and concept into practice, so that you be a good reader whenever you read something, and you never miss anything from the text, and you can answer those questions that are asked after the text effectively. Now, moving on with lecture 6 in this lecture series, it says link new facts, terms with prior fact. Now, we have some knowledge already which we call our prior knowledge. We need to be able to link the facts and also some terminologies or concepts that we read with our own knowledge to get the most out of the text. We will learn how we can choose words and phrases that are best suitable for the maximum effect. How we can write so well that the words count by every word and every phrase. So this is what we will be covering. We will be covering the new facts, terms and concepts. How do we link them together to get the most information and idea from any kind of text? Now, moving on to lecture number 7. Now, in this lecture, we will be covering a student's learning outcome. Again, it is about and having a good reading comprehension. We are going to talk about the summary skills. We will use our summary skills when we are reading something, and as you already know, we read something and then we summarize that whole thing in our own words so that we can actually understand it better. And not only this, but we also make others understand it and also write something about it. So this is why we summarize any kind of text. Now, for summarizing, you will be extracting salient points of informational. Now, when we are reading something, it takes a lot of effort and we have read so much stuff. So now we are going to create a mind map. Take a pen and a pencil or a paper and then organize everything that you have understood so that you can create a very good summarization and a very good understanding of the text. And you will be transferring the written text to a table, diagram, flowchart, or your work plan. Now that we have summarized everything using the mind map, which you know we created to keep our data and information on the paper, it's kind of a graphic organizer. So we use the graphic organizer mind map to put the whole concept in different kind of parts to relate them together, and then we will transfer it in a written form and we will create a very good summary out of it. This is what we will be learning. Now, after this, we will be covering our lecture number 8 in our series. Interpret, which means to tell it in your own words and integrate or get information from a variety of maps, graphs, charts. All these mentioned examples, maps, charts, diagrams, etc., they are your sources of getting information. You can see them in newspapers, magazines, different articles of every genre. So how do we get most information out of these kind of different sources? This is what we will be learning in our lecture, and we will interpret the information and integrate, process. Now, after learning about the different SLOs that we will be covering, from grammar, from vocabulary, from reading comprehension and critical thinking. Now, we know that oral communication is equally important, and you have to have a very good communication skills. You need to speak in the English language if you want to learn it properly, and this will open a gateway for you to learn so much more. So for that purpose, in lecture 9, we will be doing a student's learning outcome. Actually, there are two of them merged together because they are serving the same purpose of enhancing your oral communication. Now, script showing we know that we learn more by performing it in an activity. So that's why we will be performing any drama, any role play, or any play script. Now, this is not one person's job, it's a group activity. This student's learning outcome is better done if it's done in a group. And not only this, we will be learning about different roles and scenarios of acting out what we are trying to say verbally. And then we will include dialogues and speeches. So you can pick and choose any kind of drama for your performance, for your activity. Rehearse your dialogues, revise them, understand them, and then perform them out in the English language so that you can be a very good oral communicator and a very good conversationalist. This is what we do in each and everything, important tips and strategies to perform such kind of drama or do such performance if you are given a chance, or if you want to really enhance your speaking skills and your listening skills. This kind of activity is very important, that is included in the student's learning outcome. And then we will cover speak confidently and fluently in a wide fulfill different purposes, and the purposes can be for exposition, for argumentation. So think about it. How did you learn your mother tongue? You learned because you have no other option than speaking it, and you were surrounded by people who spoke your mother tongue. You listened to it, you read it, you wrote it, and that's how you are very fluent in your mother tongue, in your native language. We will be learning English in the very same manner. And for that purpose, you need not to be hesitant about speaking English confidently. And these SLOs, and through our lectures, we will make you practice that how you can speak confidently through different tips and strategies. So this is also very important. And then this is about the writing competency, where you will cover these SLOs in lecture number 10. You will claims in an analysis of using valid reasoning. Suppose that we are in a debate or we are writing an essay of the argumentative nature. We need to support our claims, our arguments with something, right? So in order to do that, you need to go through different topics or text, use the reasoning skills. Reason about your side and your perspective of the topic, and then give your efficient and sufficient evidence and proofs. And this way you can write any kind of argumentative essay or any argumentative piece of writing. In this lesson, we will be covering that how you can do that effectively. Moving on, introduce precise, knowledgeable claims, establish, distinguish the claims, and create claims, counterclaims, reasons, and evidences. Now, you know that if you're writing something, if you're writing to give your perspective on any topic, whether it's political or social or of any nature, you need to come up with some evidences, and we will teach you in this lecture that how you can do the arguments, the counter arguments, and how you can write your idea and your side of the story and your perspective effectively in your writing. So the claims, the knowledge, all these things will be covered. How do you handle the opposing claims, how you present your claims in your text, all these will be covered in lecture number 10. And now in our last lecture of the series, in lecture 11, we will be covering an SLO. Clauses as well as and reasons in claims, and you will be using words, phrases, and clauses. All these are part of a sentence, as you know. Now you will be using these to link the whole concept, the whole idea into one, and also create a very cohesive, a very relevant and conjoined kind of answer or text, with seeing the relationship between claims and what are the counter claims of that claim. So all these things will be covered. We will go through each keyword and terminologies in our lecture number 11. And now, what do we do? We do this for writing effectively, and we want to write to persuade others, to improve our writing skills, and to give our best arguments, claims, counterclaims, prove our side of the story, our perspective with proper evidence. And how we can find evidence from the text. Now this skill is also very important. We will cover all these terminologies and keywords in the lesson. Now all these lectures are introduced to you with their respected students' learning outcomes that we will be covering. This introductory lecture was to make you prepare what is coming next to you, so that you are all ready and set to learn about all these different students' learning outcomes of different skills and competencies. Now, do we have any question over here? No? Isn't this a question? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this introduction. We will be seeing you on the other side with lecture number 1, covering grammar students' learning outcome, along with vocabulary, reading, writing. All these will be covered with simulations and relevant infographics so that you can learn them effectively. And also you can access the different kind of resources that we have in the video's link. It will be uploaded on Chases Academy's YouTube channel. You can access the resources from each lecture's video description. Thank you for listening. I hope that you have got our whole understanding and the whole progression of our English 11 series. Thank you so much for listening. Allah Hafiz.